Okay, Alistair McIntyre, After Virtue, Chapter 9, Aristotle or Nietzsche. Pick one or the other, you can't have both. You either have a moral system of virtue or you don't. You can't have both, you have one or the other. Now, basically, he divides all moral systems into two options, Aristotle or Nietzsche. Aristotle, tell a murderer, a thief, or a liar, adulterer, you are wrong. Not just because you harm someone else, but you are wrong. On a fundamental cosmological scale, you are wrong. You're absolutely wrong, or you're wrong because God says so, and you will always be wrong. There's no equivocating about it, and it doesn't really matter how you feel about it. That's Aristotle. Then there's Nietzsche. You can have a Nietzschean option. You have Nietzsche's ethic and morality of a will to power. There's nothing wrong or right, just a will to power, or just a personal preference. I take it personally and I desire to be right. And if I'm strong enough, I can make it right. And you can't say any, you can whine all you want about it, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to do what I want to do. Protest all you want, but you're protesting at no one but the air. I will make it right. Until someone else bigger and badder and stronger than me comes and stomps on me, I can protest all I want. But when I say don't kill me, all I'm really saying is I would prefer you not kill me. I just don't want you to kill me. And the guy who's killing me is saying, I prefer to kill you, and there's nothing, no one to complain to about it. I just want to kill you, and I will. And we can't take it to a higher court of appeal. Okay, we can't say someone adjudicate between you and me about whether it's right or that person kill me or not. It's just a will to power. And to make his point, he talks about these sailors, these Western European sailors who explored the South Seas, and they encountered the Polynesians. And what they were shocked, and these Polynesians are people that are living completely separated from the Europeans in the Western world, and they have their own morality, their own culture, and they were shocked by what they discovered to be a very different kind of morality. In particular, it was their sexual morality. What they discovered was that among these Polynesians, there was a lot of what we might call promiscuous sex, which is that men and women were having sex with one another frequently with many different sexual partners. Whereas in the West, the belief was, whether people obeyed it or not, that you only have sex when you're married. And you only have sex with the person with whom you're married, and you don't have sex with anyone beyond that. Now, people did, but it was considered a violation of God's moral law. Yet here these Polynesians were in the open having multiple sexual partners, and there was no censure. There was nothing wrong with that. Okay, so that was odd. But then they discovered that men, although they were promiscuous sexually, they had this ironclad law that men and women could not eat together. They had to eat separately. Eating together was considered very bad, very what you might call immoral. Weird, huh? Well, I think that's kind of weird. In the Christian world, it's wrong to have sex with someone who is not your spouse. There's a strong sense of morality, monogamy, but we eat together all the time. It's Thanksgiving soon. We're going to eat together with people that are your spouse or people that aren't your spouse. We're going to have a lot of eating together. If you think about it, though, eating is a form of people sharing a physical pleasure together. Sex is a form of people sharing a physical pleasure together. And yet we in the West, in the Christian West, has decided that, the sharing of physical sex together is protected and exclusive. Yet the sharing of physical food together in a big feast, go at it. Go to McDonald's. It doesn't matter. Eat with strangers if you want. It seems to some anthropologists that the difference is completely arbitrary. When they asked the Polynesian men and women, why can't you eat together? Their answer was, it is taboo. Now, they can't really give a reason for why it's forbidden. It's just forbidden, and everyone follows that rule. Now, oddly enough, years later, when the king reversed the taboo, people adapted quickly. No big fuss. They said, okay, fine, let's men and women eat together. Why is it that they're able to shift gears so long? For long as it was like, we will never eat together, men and women. The king says, we're going to eat together. We're like, all right, let's do it. And it seemed to happen without too much fuss. too much, there was resistance. Alistair McIntyre wants to make the point that the taboo was divorced from a larger cosmic meaning. It was divorced from context. Probably, most likely, it was historical. Once upon a time, there was a reason why men and women didn't eat together, and it was rooted in a larger cosmological, mythological nature of reality. But that reality has shifted. That mythology has shifted. That religion has changed and it's completely been forgotten. But the taboo still remains. But its reason, the thing that connected it to the larger meaning of the world, has gone away. So when the king said, we're going to get rid of this injunction against men and women eating together, everyone said, okay, no big deal, because it wasn't rooted in anything anymore. Let me give you another example of a taboo that, let me just give you an example in my life. In Asian countries, for example, when you eat a bowl of rice with, you have chopsticks, it might, and we often eat a lot of rice, it might make sense when you put your utensils down that you might stick it in the bowl of rice so it sticks up like this. That might make sense, Actually, you're never supposed to do it. You're supposed to put the chopsticks down on the table beside it. But it might be a convenient holder to leave the chopsticks out like this. But you never do that. It's very rude. It is taboo. You never do that. Now, why? Well, because when you leave chopsticks in a bowl of rice sticking out like this, it looks like incense. Now, when you would burn incense like this, it would be at a funeral to honor the dead, or a ritual in which you honor dead people by burning incense in front of your ancestral altar. And I don't believe this. I'm a Christian, but imagine that was actually true for me. I really believe that this is how you honor the dead, and thus you should never leave your chopsticks in the bowl of rice like this. Now imagine my great-great-grandchildren living in America, right? I mean, they have no connection to Korea anymore, right? But imagine if I was very strict about my children, and my children are very strict to their children, and their children are very strict to their children, and said, you never leave your chopsticks in a bowl of rice like this. It is like the most rude thing ever, right? I can't imagine that they sort of maintain this tradition year after year after year, right? I mean, generation upon generation upon generation. And they know it's taboo, but they've long since forgotten why it's taboo. They just follow it kind of blindly, kind of out of tradition. Well, you can imagine later on, though, if someone decided, let's just get rid of this tradition. Why we do it anyway? You're like, yeah, why do we do this thing? I mean, why do we think it's so horrible? You can imagine that would go away pretty quickly. Why? Because it's no longer rooted in a larger cosmological sense of ancestors and spirits and reincarnate. Just spirits living on and on and on. There are no more dead spirits that would be offended by this kind of act, right? Now, if it was rooted in a larger sense of meaning and purpose, then you would hold on to these ideas. But when it's just an act that's, again, rather arbitrary, then you move on. You can change on the fly. It just doesn't matter anymore. This is like pragmatism or emotivism. Morality, if you see it from an anthropological point of view, when there is no ontological or meaning, no teleological meaning, then all morality and ethics just seem arbitrary. We just make it up. And the idea of eating with one another and having sex with one another, what's the difference, right? It's just something that we've made up along the way. You guys ever hear of Kurt Vonnegut Jr.? He's not a Christian. Morally and ethically, I'm not sympathetic with him, but I think he's a brilliant writer. There's a book of his short stories called Breakfast of Champions. I remember this from years ago. And he wrote this short story, which I think really illustrates this point well. It's a science fiction story. It's rather fantastical, but it makes a very interesting moral dilemma, or just an interesting commentary on the nature of morality. It's a story about an astronaut who goes to another planet. And he's kind of an explorer, he's kind of an anthropologist, and lands there. And he finds kind of a desolate planet. It's not very rich or robust, but nonetheless, people are nice, and somehow he can talk to them. And he's telling them, I'm from another planet. I'm here to learn about your culture. And they say, okay, and they throw a meal for him, and he's eating this really gray gruel. Now, it's nutritious, it feeds you, but it's devoid of color, aroma, or flavor. It's a very drab kind of meal. And he asks them about their society, what the world is like, and they tell him, and they say, there is something you should know about our world. And he goes, what is it? He goes, it's very embarrassing. It's so scandalous. We don't want to talk about it. But it's just, if you're an anthropologist of some sort, you ought to know about our world. He goes, well, what is it? He goes, well, we just have a really bad pornography problem. We're just notorious across the galaxy because our pornography is just so bad. I mean, it's just over the top bad. We have like the worst porn problem ever. And the astronaut's kind of intrigued. He's like, oh, really? Tell me about it. He goes, oh, we don't want to talk about it. He says, and he's kind of titillated. He's like, I kind of ought to know about this just to be a responsible anthropologist or astronaut. They said, well, could you show it to me? He goes, all right, well, we'll take you to a porn theater. So, he goes to this porn theater and he's kind of like, he's trying to be a scientific and professional objective, but he's kind of like interested in what's going on. And, he's watching a movie. And, to make a long story short, it's a very sensuous, graphic, colorful movie about people eating succulent, beautiful, luxurious food. And he's like, okay, so they're having dinner, then they'll have sex. And, it's like a 12-course meal of the most beautiful food you could possibly imagine. Now, remember, they just eat gruel. It's very colorless and drab. It's an over-the-top sensuous meal. And then the movie ends. It's like, there was no sex. It was just eating. And they said, yeah, it wasn't a horrible scandals, all this public eating. Oh, my goodness. And I think the point was, we've decided in our Christian culture, not we've decided, but, I think it's from God, by the way, but I mean, in our culture, we decided that sex, not we decided, rather God has declared, sex is something special, just you be preserved for marriage. But food is a physical pleasure that ought to be enjoyed by all, communally. But in this other planet, eating together this way was kind of like what we would consider an orgy or group sex. And the anthropologists or the Nietzschean, the emotivists, the pragmatists would say it's just arbitrary. It's all a Nietzschean will to power. Morality is not rooted in, because here's the thing, it's all just cultural conventions. Our morality is not rooted in any larger cosmological scheme. It's not from God. There's no logic to it. It's just an arbitrary cultural convention. And that's what the point of the taboo was. And he's saying that this is the world we live in. It's just taboo. It's arbitrary. It doesn't mean anything. And this is where he wants to launch into the rest of the book, saying, no, we are either Nietzschean or Aristotelian. All right? After the Enlightenment, we tried to create a morality. We got rid of Christianity, but we still want morality. We're going to make an objective, universal, ontological, teleological morality based on universal sense of reason that all people can agree on. And that failed. And you go from Enlightenment to Nietzsche. All right, that's inevitable. You're always going to end up with Nietzsche no matter how hard you try. And he doesn't want Nietzsche. So what do? He just go back to Aristotle. Not Aristotle in particular, but he's using Aristotle as a category of some kind of morality that is teleological, that's rooted in something greater, more, it's transcendent, it's permanent. It's not just will and convention and accident, all right?